Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, TV 15 viewers, radio listeners via Tel TV Plus, SXM Gov Radio 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Charity Dunker, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. At this time, I'd like to invite the Honorable Minister of Finance, Artwell Irian, to address you. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Ms. Dunker. Good morning to the Honorable Council of Ministers. Good morning to the media, and good morning to the viewing public. It has come to my attention that there have been some irregularities in the receiver's office that are being currently investigated, and I will provide more information when possible. That's all for today, and I won't be able to make a full press briefing, but I'll take your questions in writing.
Thank you, Minister Irian, for your opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and welcome to the press briefing for this morning the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Edward Durant, to address you. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Charity. Good morning, members of DCOM, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. I actually thought you were going to say public health, but I guess I'm up next. Nevertheless, I'm pulling up my notes now. Today, as I start off my announcement, that recently I approved the overarching countrywide spatial development strategy 2030. Upon coming into the Ministry of Rummy, I took note that this draft spatial development strategy was being worked on for quite a while. Since then, after continued diligent work by the stakeholders involved, I now wish to announce that the document has been signed for final review, and it was also approved by the Council of Ministers yesterday. A number of consultations took place with various stakeholders, which included other ministries and the port and the airport as well. These stakeholders in general all supported the content of the spatial development strategy. The draft spatial development strategy is a policy document which sets the basis and provides guidelines for the drafting of more detailed policies and legislation on spatial planning, such as, for instance, the zoning plans. Important to note is that it does not yet demand any strict requirements pertaining to how space land may be used or developed. However, the strategy describes a spatial development vision for St. Martin and suggests a number of strategic proposals on how spatial planning can be regulated in a more sustainable manner, taking in the environment, economy, social domain into account. The strategy includes different maps on which these strategic proposals are visualized. The main intention of the document is to create awareness on the need for a holistic approach when developing the country of St. Martin. This means that the new development projects that are proposed, all involved, for example, are given the economic, nature, and social aspects are taken into account. The Ministry of Rummy has to work with the following national ordinances: the National Ordinance Foundation Spatial Development Planning, Landverordening Grondslagen op Ruimtelijke Ontwikkelingsplannen, and the National Ordinance on Spatial Planning, Landverordening Ruimtelijke Ontwikkeling, when drafting the government policy for the development of the country. In these ordinances, a framework is given about the instruments to be used, such as a countrywide development program and development plans that take into account any development of St. Martin. I would also like to announce that on Monday, August 23rd, I signed the advice regarding the legal review for the environmental legislation of St. Martin. This allows from a request of the Nature Foundation to the Dutch Caribbean Nature Alliance, DCNA, for assistance to carry out a gap analysis with existing legislation relating to the conservation of St. Martin's natural resources. The goal of this legal review is to identify methods to enhance the legislation and create a new legislative measure to update, reinforce, and enhance the conservation of nature on St. Martin. The Man of War Shoal Marine Park is the only actively managed marine protected area on St. Martin. Located south of Phillipsburg, the marine park is home to migratory stopover and breeding site for numerous species and conservation and is of conservation importance. The Man of War Shoal Marine Park covers 3,100 hectares, representing 5.7% of the total marine waters of St. Martin. It is the ministry's mission to preserve and protect the natural resources for generations to come and having the legal framework in place to protect our island's essential needs. In regards to the school boards, I know a couple of weeks ago, as in my capacity as Deputy Prime Minister, I was asked a question by a member of the media, and I responded as we were going to take an approach in speaking to the different stakeholders. Me and the Minister of Finance spoke to all but 2 school boards, in which we gave information as to bringing clarity to certain things that wasn't clear to them. They had to, in turn, send a letter to the Ministry of Finance indicating their ways how they would approach the situation. Up to now, I believe 2 letters were received and still awaiting those of others. I would like the Minister of Finance to maybe dovetail on it a bit after I finish my announcements, but I just want to update the public. I also mentioned in that same meeting, in that same press briefing, that I would come back and give an update on it. However, at the same time, I mentioned that I would speak to the relevant stakeholders, as I believe that is something that has to be discussed with the relevant boards and the ministries on a whole. Last but not least, last but not least, I would like to mention that it's great honor for me to announce that the first employee has been hired since the job mixer, and they're slated to start to work tomorrow. Ms. Sarant is very motivated. We had a meeting with her on Monday, and I'm proud to announce that we're finally reaching that milestone. And we're also in the final stages of rounding off other recruitments as well. So I just want the general public to know that the job mixer was effective, and I'd like to thank everyone involved, including the P&O department and the relevant VROMI department heads. I now give the floor to the Minister.
Thank you, Minister Duran. At this time, I'd like to re-invite the Honorable Minister of Finance, Artwell Arian. You may proceed.
Thank you. Yes, in regards to, I'll start with the job fair. I believe that the Ministry of VROMI is a lot further than the Ministry of Finance when it comes to the job fair. We did start the process of elimination, but in terms of the letters and so forth. But we have limited staff, especially at the P&O department, so we can't overburden them or overwhelm them. So I'm happy that the Ministry of VROMI is a lot further, like I mentioned before, and that their first has already been hired. In addition to that, since the announcement by the Minister of VROMI, we did meet with majority of school boards. The only 2 that we did not meet as yet was the Asher Stevens School and the NEPA. The NEPA, we have sent a request for, I believe, Thursday afternoon, so that will happen then. We were in, as I mentioned before, informal contact on meeting and so forth. So I'm happy to announce that we will be meeting with the NEPA on Thursday. We met all different school boards. They are busy sending in new proposals. The Catholic School Board, I believe, were the first to send it in. I have also officially responded to that also. And I'm hoping that in short that we'll get the rest communications and that the long-standing issue will be officially resolved. One thing I can say for sure is on our end now, we have on a one-on-one approach communicated with the school boards so that they are now fully aware, and we have paid out all subsidies fully. I want to be very clear now also, we have not withheld any 12.5% from any school board. So they have all received that. So with this clarity, the next step will be on the school board on how they want to execute and how they plan to execute. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Minister Artwell, for adding to the opening remarks from the Minister of VROMI. Moving on to the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Omar Otley, to address you. Good morning, Mr. Otley.
Good morning. Good morning to the members of the media, the Honorable Prime Minister, and my colleague. I would like to start today with some VSR-related news. Of course, as Minister of Public Health, I would like to urge everyone to remain vigilant with COVID-19, monkeypox, and of course, we saw that CPS recently announced the hand, foot, and mouth disease. So these stuff are basically prevalent to the world. It is nothing, I would say, new. So I ask that everyone, please remain vigilant, do your due diligence, keep safe, practice safe hygiene. I would also like to advise everyone to know your community help desk. There's a potential disturbance. So far, we are looking lucky, but I'm not asking anyone to let their guards down. Still be prepared for Friday, Saturday. There's a potential disturbance that will be in our vicinity. I'm asking anyone who is not secure with the house or the facility that you are staying with, get to your community help desk, find your nearest shelter, and know your nearest shelter. I also would like to announce that the RFP, the invite will go out on September 5th for the study on the legalization of cannabis. And I would also like to announce that I'll be in Parliament September 2nd, which is Friday. I invite the public to watch as we discuss the amendment of the short-term contract and the proposals that the Ministry of Labor intends to bring forth under my tenure. TIAT-related matters, I switched my cap for a bit. Mr. Andrew Dick, you recently released something that caught my attention, and I'm glad that you did, so I can bring clarity to it. It was the aspect of Phillipsburg and Phillipsburg not having activity. So I would like to inform the public that we do see I wouldn't say a lack because there were crews, but a decrease in activities during what we call the slow season. What normally happens is the bigger ships go to Europe around this time. This is their high season. And the remaining smaller ships would then have 6-day Caribbean cruise. But during the pandemic, Royal Caribbean salvaged upwards of 23 ships. Royal Caribbean salvaged 10 ships, and the Carnival Cruise Line salvaged upward of 23 ships. Those were the smaller, I would say, older ships that used to be within the Caribbean region. So therefore, we saw a major decrease with the lack of these ships being able to, tour. However, I'm happy to announce that during the season, all the ships have 100% occupancy projected. Some of them even have upwards of 120% occupancy projected. So we do expect a good cruise season. So this is good news. I would like to also speak on Phillipsburg. I hope that we can use this downtime to diversify Phillipsburg. Just think of it as a tourist yourself. If you come here every year for the past 20 years, what has really changed in Phillipsburg? The same thing. So we need to diversify. The ministry is also working on a plan to bring back life to Phillipsburg. As correctly stated, it is our capital. So we need to find a way, but we can't do it without the assistance of the stakeholders. Also, airport related, we do have good projections as well for the airport. From October, November, December, there will be an increase in flights. So I'm happy to announce that. Thank you. Look forward to any questions from the members of the media.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Omar Otley, for those opening remarks. Before moving on to the next minister, the Honorable Prime Minister would like to make mention that she'll be leaving directly after her opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs to address you. Sylveria Jacobs, good morning to you, Minister.
Good morning, Ms. Dunker. Good morning to my colleagues, the members of the media, the support staff of the Department of Communications, of course, to the people of St. Martin. A good morning and blessings to one and all. Ms. Dunker, I'd like to start by updating that there have been several discussions held between the Supervisory Board of NVGEB and specifically my person as part of our efforts to supervise and hold the board and management accountable during the current crisis. As shareholder rep, the government is doing its due diligence, and that needs to be assured to the public of St. Martin. Responses to our 2 letters have been received on Monday, as well as notifications of resignation from 2 members, which I noted has also made the press already. So these points were also taken along in our discussions in our Council of Ministers meeting, leading to decisions by the shareholder on the way forward. Of course, seeing the confidentiality of our council meetings and, of course, the sensitivity of the topic, I will not be going into any details here. Rest assured that due diligence is also being exercised to ensure that the questions posed in Parliament are being properly have been partially received last evening and are being properly vetted. And a follow-up meeting with board and management will be held later today in order to prepare for the meeting, the public meeting of Parliament scheduled for Friday. As such, I would ask the indulgence of the public as well as the media to not request any further details at this time regarding this. I will not be going into the details. Do understand that it is very sensitive information. Even some of the questions asked by Parliament are sensitive, and they are cognizant of the fact that those answers would not be able to be shared in a public setting. So that still has to be ascertained how that will be done, and that meeting is called for Friday. In the meantime, we will continue to do our due diligence, seeing the decisions that have been made thus far. I continue to encourage the people of St. Martin, whether you have received your bill or not, to make a payment in order that you are not jeopardized. We have had several discussions, and the board knows our stance where that is concerned. Also, as Minister of General Affairs and Prime Minister, I am to be in Parliament today at 11 a.m., though I've asked for an extension. That is mainly to ensure that I'm properly prepared to go into the public meeting regarding the amendment to the ordinance on the 12.5% cuts for civil servants. So that is today at 11, hopefully 11:30 as I've requested, but if not, at 11. On the front, I did hear my colleague mention something already about preparations for the hurricane, but I'd like to, as chair of the EOC, remind the general public to continue with your preparations. As he mentioned, though there is some shower and thunderstorm activity associated with the low pressure, several hundred miles of the Lesser Antilles, the percentage has increased up to 80%. We are expecting it to pass due north of the island and will still feel some rainfall. So therefore, not because it's not a tropical storm or a hurricane should we let down our guard. As you know, a disaster can come from just rain, too much rain falling at one time. So I'm asking that all stay tuned to the official announcements from the Meteorological Department of St. Martin and the government's website, government's Facebook page, and 1079, and continue to monitor the progress of this system as you will be updated via these mediums accordingly. Our emergency support functions, the ESFs of the various ministries, have their plans in place for the duration of the season. Government will continue to be vigilant to ensure that families are safe, especially our most vulnerable. But we ask the general population to ensure that the most vulnerable in your family are also taken care of and all the necessary preparations are made. Visit our government website, government Facebook page, for a list of what you should have with you and for how long, and ensure that we are properly prepared. I'd also like to encourage persons to visit our government Facebook page and my Facebook page to take part in the survey on electoral reform. The plans that we had slated for this week may be postponed due to the other pressing issues at this moment, but it is still remaining quite a high priority, which requires some dialogue also with Parliament. I've taken note of Parliament's letter. There was a cross of letters, our letter requesting information, and a sit down with the Electoral Reform Committee and the participation of the chair as well as other members of Parliament passed, within days of each other. So we look forward to all stakeholders being involved in this very key conversation for the people of St. Martin. And as mentioned, if we are able to get the questions right away, I'll remain for a few more minutes, but unfortunately, I do have to prepare for Parliament. Thank you for the time and consideration. Stay blessed, stay positive, and we will get through this crisis together.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister Saveria Jacobs, for those opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you're watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, August 31st, 2022. Thank you for joining us. At this time, we move on to the question and answer session. whereby I'd like to invite Ms. Bibi Hartshaw of SMN News. You have the floor. Good morning, Bibi.
Thank you, Charity. Good morning, colleagues and ministers. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Jacobs, I took note of your opening statement regarding NVGEBE. I'm going to ask you a question for clarity and not sensitive information like you said. Based on the presentation that you have given to Parliament on Friday, the instructions given to the SBOD, for example, hiring an independent manager, having a crisis management team in place and an investigation. Can you tell us if the shareholder instructed the board or even advised the board to put the recruitment process that started some 3 years ago on hold prior to hiring these independent bodies? And has government indicated or the shareholder indicated how long should these independent bodies be in place? Because based on the way it is right now, PM, we are seeing mixed messages sent to the board. So I'm trying to gain clarity as to whether or not a stop, suspension, hold were placed on the recruitment process.
Thank you for your follow-up to my opening statements, Ms. Shaw. Indeed, we have had several discussions. I did say I'm not going to go into the details of what we put in our letters, not their responses. I'm seeing that you do have some internal information there, so I'm questioning that. Very interesting indeed. As a shareholder, as the representative of the people of St. Martin, and ensuring that the viability, the sustainability of GEBE is assured, we are doing what we have to do. We're asking the pertinent questions. And as I also mentioned in my statement in Parliament, we can only share what is shared with us. So more information is required before any further statements will be made. We made clear suggestions and gave advice on government stance as shareholder, and we expect that we will be able to have the best interest of GEBE and the people served once we can get further into the information that is yet to be provided.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Bibi, for the question posed. Moving on to Ms. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald. Welcome, Jacqueline. You have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. Good morning, ministers. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, a year ago you announced a partnership with Grid Market for the transition of St. Martin to sustainable, renewable and affordable energy. Could you tell us what the status of that partnership is and how much money, EU money, has been invested in the partnership?
Thank you for that question, Ms. Hoffman. The Grid Market project is ongoing. It requires collaboration with all stakeholders, and the action plan was awaiting key information from NVGEBE. They can proceed without that information, but of course it would be a more well-rounded action plan presented to government on the way forward towards sustainable energy once that information has been received. Due to the hack, of course, that has been severely delayed, but we have given them the go-ahead to proceed, seeing that there does seem to be very little concrete information that will be required for them to be able to present that information to us. So they should be able to present their program action plan for government's approval within short. I can't give you a time. I will follow up with them. We do have boots on the ground who are working diligently with the Department of BOC to ensure that we already start the lineup of, for instance, investors who are willing to invest in the first phase of the project. So we did receive an update, and once I can ascertain when we can receive the finalized plan without GEBE's input, I will be able to update the general public and your person.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And also, no, you'll have to wait till the second round comes around. Thank you very much again, Jacqueline, for your question posed. Moving on to Mr. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. Minister, due to the sensitivity of GEB, the people that are on the edge, Minister, but let me ask this question. Do you give a timeline when GEB should give the information?
I think I've been quite clear in all my statements to the public as to the wishes of the shareholder in terms of communication to the public. That has left a whole lot to be desired. I'm not going to mince words about it. And I am still, as representative of the shareholder, together with my counsel, dissatisfied with the manner in which GEBE has communicated to the public. The deadline has long surpassed.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Lyndon. Moving on to Mr. Andrew Dick of TV Carib. Good morning, Andrew. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Charity, and good morning to the ministers. My question is for the Minister of Finance. Can you please clarify the opening statement concerning issues at the receiver's office?
As I mentioned before, it came to my attention that there were some irregularities at the receiver's office, and I've also mentioned that I'll give more information when possible. So at the current time, we can't say anymore, but it is being investigated.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Andrew. Ms. Bibi Haj Shah of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. My question, I will pose this question to the Minister of Romy, Minister Doran. Over the past year, or even a bit longer, you have only been engaged in putting out fires. If my memory serves me correct, Minister, you had the Alegria situation, over the bank, land distribution, GEBE, the ombudsman, and the garbage contracts. Do you regret any of the decisions you have taken thus far? And can you, for example, tell us if you would have done anything different, especially when appointing members of the board to the board of NVGEBE, and how has all of this hindered your work progress?
That's a pretty loaded question. I'll start from the top. Indeed, coming into the ministry, there has been a lot of controversy. It is a controversial ministry, so to speak, because it's pretty large, and it requires a lot of third-party engagement. I must say, as we all know, there's no secret that one of the top persons in the ministry was also dismissed for certain things, as the point you mentioned with Alegria. That basically started out and wasn't a good thing for the ministry and for government on a whole. It's something that I've never celebrated because it's unfortunate, and it left a mark on the ministry. Indeed, as you mentioned, there are various situations that did took place, and there's always room for improvement. And I see where I learned from certain mistakes or certain decisions that were taken, because we're all human beings. And regarding the last question on the board, and I appointed the board, the Council of Ministers appointed the board. There's no shareholder rep. We are all shareholder, so that was jointly done. And as the Prime Minister mentioned, we had very crucial and in-depth meetings over the last couple of weeks, and that will continue today, as Pierre mentioned. And after that, the public will be made aware of whatever decisions have been taken. So I hope that answers your question.
Can you tell us how this affected your tenure as a minister?
Yes, indeed. I forgot that point. Definitely it affected the tenure in terms of not getting as much as I would have wanted to get done so far. And we're speaking as if my tenure is over. It's not over yet. So I'd like to say that after all these fires, as you mentioned, are out, we have full set plans on things that we want to execute. The ministry is fully motivated in the sense of there's a lot of things in the pipeline that certain departments want to get off the ground. And I believe that once we're able to come out of this hurdle in the sense of dealing with all these certain controversial matters, we can get a lot done. I mentioned the spatial development strategy. We have the nature policy. We have what are we saying with the Nature Foundation and DCNA last week as well. We have the renovated homes in Belvedere, the 64 units. We have the ship salvaging project that was a big controversial issue back in 2017 that we were able to see through with the Ministry of TIAT as well. So we have a lot that's going good, but obviously, you know, the bad gets much more highlight. And I must say that with the question that you ask, I'll definitely be giving a sort of 2 years in review, because it is important for us to remember the positive things that were done, because indeed it is demotivating for the staff as well as all of us, because only the negative is getting on the forefront, which is life, which is politics. But I do think it's important to highlight the hard work that the staff put in as well. So thank you for that question, Bibi.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Bibi. Ms. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. Minister Doran, the Prime Minister just left. Maybe you can answer the question, what the investment in grid market, how much money that represents. And there is, it is said that there, Shoal proposed to take over the production of GB. Can you confirm that? And if yes, can you elaborate on that?
I'd like to ask Minister of Finance to comment first.
Good morning again. In regards to the grid market, I believe the initial steps don't require funding, so it's a lot of data collection and so forth. And they're actually going. The grid market's actually also going to look on how we could finance it. So it's not that we are paying them. They're also going to partner with government on financing possibilities or investment possibilities and so forth. But that step hasn't yet arrived. Right now is a data collection and data gathering and putting a plan together on a sustainable energy policy for the island in general. So it's a collaboration between government, grid market, DBE, and other stakeholders and partners. It's not just government and the CGB, for example. So after that is done, then the process on financing, because then we know as a country what we want, which area we're going into, and how we're going to separate the different things. Let's say if it's solar, if it's LNG, if it's gas, whatever it is. So when it comes to payments, we haven't reached that point as yet.
Thank you, Minister. And regarding the second point with Shoal and taking over the energy production, I have not received any information to that, so I cannot comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, both ministers, and also thank you, Jacqueline, for your question. Mr. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Health. Minister of Health, during the pandemic, Minister, you had a lot of energy and you were speaking very verbally, even sometimes you want to cry, Minister. But the monkeypox is very serious also, Minister. And I do not find you have so much energy with the presentation of the monkeypox, because one time they are saying that it's relationship with men and men, and the people are saying they find that this is discriminating. So give me the energy, Minister. And this.
Thank you. When I came in in the middle of a pandemic, something that we never seen before. And it was definitely detrimental to the country. There were hundreds of people infected. There was well within the 10s to 20 people hospitalized on a weekly basis. It was a national crisis. The monkeypox, at this moment, I don't want to inflict fear within the community. And I won't speak of a specific group as stated before. I would advise everyone to be cautious, everyone to take the necessary steps to ensure your safety and the safety of those around you. So at this moment, I don't want to inflict fear in the community. I just want them to do their due diligence to remain safe.
Thank you, Minister, and also thank you, Lyndon. Mr. Andrew Dick of TV Carib, you have the floor.
Thank you. The question is for Minister Doran. From a spatial planning perspective, we know that land is very limited, and we would like to know the plans, if there are any plans for allowing fast tracking of taller buildings to allow developers to make more use of the land by going to 5 or 6 or higher.
Thank you, Andrew. I think you maybe were somewhere on the wall in the Council of Ministers meeting yesterday, because coincidentally, when we approved the spatial development strategy that I mentioned earlier, that was one of the points that I brought forth. We all live in St. Martin, and we can see that land is limited indeed. And I strongly believe, and I also mentioned previously, that I am a proponent of taller buildings, because then we can make more use of the space that we have. And we know that there's so to speak, a housing crisis, lack of housing, lack of social homes, and I think that is the only way. However, I do believe that we have to do it in a responsible manner, whereas zoning plays a major role. And the approval of the strategy that I mentioned earlier is in line with that. So we are on a road towards that. And I believe that we definitely need to make more use of our land, smaller footprints, but it would allow more persons to get opportunities, so to speak, to be homeowners, for example. Another point that I mentioned as well is that we live on an island where the beaches are our main attraction. And just right there, if you go to Curacao or Aruba, or even in the Dominican Republic, there are different sort of attractions where, for example, Boca Chica, where there's a sort of in-water restaurant where you basically can have lunch or dinner, breakfast in the middle of the beach. It's basically set up like a pier, and you have different huts and so forth. So I think that as an island, we need to explore these options. I met with the Nature Foundation a couple of weeks ago, and there's always this thin line between development and the environment. But I think that even, especially after speaking to them in that meeting, if we involve the relevant stakeholders in advance and not after the fact, they can also assist in guiding us in how to reach there. Because if you, for instance, drive piles instead of filling, it does alleviate a lot of those concerns. So I do believe that even from an economic perspective and attraction perspective, we need to explore those different options to be able to offer more to our visitors as well. And we shouldn't have to go to Aruba or Santo Domingo or anywhere else, or Bali, to have certain experiences when we have all the necessary resources here. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And also thank you, Andrew. Ms. Bibi Shaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. My question is to the Minister of VSA. Minister Otley, some weeks ago I asked you some questions regarding, and you promised some follow-up to give me the answers. I'd like to have those today. One is the extension of the maternity leave that had to go into effect since March. Where are we now? I know the Justice Department ministry had to be part of this amendment to the Civil Code. And then I'd like for you to give me the follow-up information that I asked about the investigation with the death of the Backstreet worker. You had said you were looking for answers pertaining to the reasons why this worker had private insurance and not SZV.
Thank you, Ms. Hadsha. The Backstreet worker, like I did indicate, I'm going to send you that in writing. I'm going to send it to you today, privately. I won't go into too much details, but I'm going to answer you today privately, and I hope that we understand the sensitivity. But I will respect your request, and I will send you that answer today. As far as the maternity leave, the Civil Code, it was approved by the CoM. It was sent to the governor, and it's scheduled to go into effect October 1st. So once it comes back from the governor, ratification from the governor, it will go into effect October 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley, and thank you, Bibi. Now moving on to Ms. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. My question is for the Minister of TIAD. The largest travel organization, TUI, did a research among travelers, and it appeared that the decisive factors to return to a destination or not return to a destination were litter and animal cruelty, or stray dogs. In that regard, I wanted to ask you who and how the veterinary cost medication are regulated, because on St. Martin they're extremely high. And for instance, I will give you an example. If you take a tablet like NextGuard, which is for fleas and ticks, one tablet on St. Martin costs $21. If you buy that same tablet on Curacao, it costs $8 to $10. Doxycycline is an antibiotic that's given to people and to animals. You can better go to your house doctor, your family doctor, to get doxycycline, because that will be like a few hundred times cheaper than to get it from a vet. So I would like to ask you how this is regulated.
You're asking me how prices are regulated, not just dog medicine
Medication,
pricing.
because if people can't afford to take their pets to a vet,
Okay.
then
So
we will have a lot
no
of
problem.
cruelty
So
on
the
animals.
first thing is two different questions. One, I want to answer the one where you speak on the TUI survey. St. Martin survey and survey done by the cruise port says the number one reason people don't return to, you speak of a destination, but I'm speaking based on an economic report that we're preparing. The top complaint for St. Martin is one, traffic, and two, we can say cleanliness of the island. Those have been documented. I didn't see anything about animal cruelty when it comes to St. Martin. So I want to address that. There is a work group being discussed. I have had discussions with the Minister of Rummy to see then how we can alleviate this issue to the best of our capabilities. As we know, traffic is a major issue, especially within the Simpson Bay area. One of the most reasons for revisiting St. Martin is the beaches. The minister touched on the importance of cleanliness and keeping the beaches clean. And as Minister of TIAT, we are also now corresponding with what type of licenses is given out. What is happening? Sometimes we realize licenses are given out, and then the Ministry of Rummy have not been consulted, or they will be consulted after. So we are now collaborating and ensuring we are synchronized when it comes to this aspect. When it comes to the pricing of anything in general, we know that St. Martin is indeed expensive. There's it has been compared to the rest of the region. We are one of the most expensive. So we are looking at ways and means to decrease this cost and just increase purchasing power throughout in general. So it's not only with the animal medicine, but it's just in general, we have to find a way to decrease the cost or increase our purchasing power of our consumers on St. Martin. How is it established? I can get a clear answer on that next press briefing.
Okay. Thank you, Minister Otley, and also thank you, Jacqueline. Mr. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Health. Yeah. Minister of Health, pensioners are very disturbed because what they're saying that the process for the pensioner to obtain a SVB card is so drawn out. And they said most of the time when they go to the SVB, they're sending them to your office, and most of them is being denied, Minister. Can you explain the process, why they're being denied, and why the process is so long?
That goes back to the legislation that we're working on called the 1B. This is called the 65 plus insurance. It's done on a humanitarian basis, but we are formalizing it. The reason why they are sent to us is the process is to go through the government to see if you would qualify for government insurance. And then once you are denied, SZV don't turn you back. Once you are denied, it's done on that basis. So once you fall within the criteria, you do get through. So I don't know who tells you that it's denied. The process, the reason that it's sent to the government building is you have to come to the government building first to request and see if you qualify for what we call government insurance, pay card holders. So that is the process. You come to see if you qualify for government insurance. Once you are denied, whether it's because you're a pensioner, we then refer you to SZV, and on that humanitarian basis, SZV then accepts it.
Thank you, Minister, and also thank you, Lyndon. Mr. Andrew Dick of TV Carib, you have the floor.
Thank you. I had a question for the Minister of Roaming. I don't know if you're going to take that too, or okay. I just wanted to know if you could elucidate a little bit about the plans for Phillipsburg, as far as attraction is concerned.
Definitely. In today's world, you try not to give away too much until it's concrete or solidifies. We have a culture where, you know, people want things now. So what we are doing, we are now gathering the information. We are now discussing with the cruise lines. As you know, there is discussions for the cruise lines to, I don't want to say, but we are having discussions where they would start finally the processes of, I would say, entertainment within Phillipsburg, or entertainment aspect within Phillipsburg. We are also discussing the marketplace, a tourist help desk, and new avenues that will come for bus activities, and then also looking into my personal favorite, the amusement activities on the boardwalk. As you travel, you realize different boardwalks and so forth, they have a culture. So we are looking into the amusement aspect of it. There are many activities that we see around Christmas time and so forth. So we are looking in how can we create this avenue maybe on a weekly basis on the weekend.
Thank you, Minister, and also thank you, Andrew Dick, for posing the last question from the members of the media. Honorable Minister of the Council, members of the media, online viewers, and TV viewers as well. This brings us to the end of the Live Council Ministers Press Briefing for today, Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telems, TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15 for video on demand. Also log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of our team at the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I bid you a pleasant day further.